What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertinier Outdoors. This is your host, Billy, and pretty excited about this week's episode to be able to sit down. It ended up being a big group of guys. So this week you will hear from pretty much the entire Hunters Creek Outdoors group. Hunters Creek Outdoors, if you live in Western New York and quite possibly if you live in New York, you probably have a pretty good knowledge of who Hunters Creek Outdoors is. So these guys kind of been representing Western New York for quite a while on Facebook in particular, and I had started following these guys probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and luck have it, I ended up meeting one of the guys, Scott. He lives pretty well. All the guys from Hunters Creek live pretty close to where I live now, and Scott and I have become pretty good friends over the last year and a half. So had the opportunity to get together with these guys on Sunday. They had a great season, so they were meeting up with their taxidermist at their butcher shop over at one of the guys' house, Jamie. He's got a nice little shop where they cut up all their deer and kind of their little hangout spot for the group. So had a chance to sit down with all of them, and it was a bit much off the bat. I had wires flying everywhere, and tried to have everybody an opportunity to talk on the mic. But I think as we this is a long one. It's almost 2 hours long, right around 2 hours. But definitely think it's worth it, listening and hearing what these guys are all about. If you are like me and you've been following them on Facebook or Instagram for a few years, you get an idea who they are from the pictures, but you don't really get to hear who the guys are behind those pictures. And that's one of the beauties of this platform with a podcast, is being able to kind of dig in a little bit and get to know what these guys are all about, and what their mission is, and what they're out there doing in their outdoor lives, and also what they're doing to their whole mission of Hunters Creek. And I think it aligns pretty well with what we're all about here at Pertinier Outdoors, and that's just showing the fun, exciting side of the outdoors and what it has to offer. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about that, and it was a pleasant surprise that the elder statesman Tim Murray, which is the father of Paul and Scott, he was a piece of work, and reminded me a lot of my dad, and I think like a lot of fathers or grandfathers out there that are pretty proud of what their boys or girls have turned into out in the outdoors, or just anything in general. He was awesome. He just wanted to tell stories, and it was pretty funny watching the boys all react, because they're like, "Come on, Dad, we don't need to bring all this stuff up." But he was in the moment, in the glory. So we had a great time, and I think you'll enjoy this chat. And so make sure to head on over to Facebook or Instagram or even YouTube. These guys, their big thing is they do a lot of video content. So as we can probably all relate, there's only so many hours in the day, so they do a ton of recording. But their big mission for themselves is to try to get a lot of this video put out over the next few months before turkey season hits. And they've got a lot of footage, but not just from this year, but from previous years that they're working to get put out on YouTube. So pretty straightforward. Hunters Creek Outdoors on all those major platforms is where you can find them. So just Hunters Creek Outdoors, and give them a follow and give them a like, and I think you will enjoy it. And they're a good representation of what upstate New York has to offer for not just deer, but turkey, fishing, upland birds, all that sort of stuff. So good group of dudes. Enjoy the podcast. Thanks for following along, and get out there and get after it. Thanks. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertinier Outdoors. And I'm excited because today I'm sitting down with the entire gang of the Hunters Creek Outdoors group here in Western New York. So, we got somebody coming in. We got more people coming. I'm surrounded. So Scott and I have gotten to be pretty good buddies, Scott Murray and I. So over the last year or so, really gotten pretty close with him. And we talk hunting every single morning at the gym, and have become pretty good friends. And feel like I know all you guys sitting around the table from all the stories I hear and everything you got going on. So funny thing too, before I met Scott, as a lot of people in Western New York, I've been following Hunters Creek Outdoors for years, probably maybe even since you guys got started. So it's really cool to make the connection with Scott, and then to kind of start kind of getting to know the guys in the group, and I really like what you guys are all about, and I've enjoyed following along, and it's cool to be sitting here today to just kind of get to know you guys. And that's, like I told Scott, I wanted to take an opportunity to sit down with you guys because I think that a lot of people would love to hear, who Hunters Creek Outdoors is and hear who the people are behind the pictures and the content that they see. So I guess with that, we'll start going to my left. We'll kind of go around the circle, just introduce yourself, your name. Do you like to bow hunt or gun hunt? No, just kidding. Long walks on the beach. No, so we'll start to the left and we'll go around. You got a microphone, you silly goose. What's going on you?
Well, my name's Ryan Van Loo, and I love bow hunting and shooting turkeys.
Beautiful.
Doug Rowland here. Bow hunting has certainly been a great pursuit of mine over the years, and I've learned an awful lot through the Murrays, especially Tim Murray, or really since the start of my bow hunting career. My dad never did it much, but Tim has taught me an awful lot over the years, and very appreciative of everything that they've done for me, and on that as well. Hunting turkeys and catching trout is two of my other favorite pastimes.
How did you get to know these guys?
Playing hockey in the old day, and I guess I got to throw the compliments here to Jamie Mann for dating my sister.
that helps significantly.
Yeah. And they were breaking up, and Jamie says, "Hey, is this putting us in a bad spot?" And I says, "Not as far as I'm concerned." And he says, "Good." And
awesome.
Through Jamie living just a few doors down from the Murrays, I guess that's how I was introduced to the Murrays, and this is kind of history from there.
Awesome.
Jamie Mann, I don't know if I can add much to that, but
well done.
Yeah,
well done,
really
Doug.
well done. I mean, for me, same kind of thing. Bow hunting is probably number one. Turkeys and catching trout are number two. I also probably owe more than I can even imagine to the Murray family. I want to say these guys moved here probably mid-'80s.
87.
87. See that? 87. I was a young buck at 17 years old at that point, and just got my driver's license. So you can only imagine, we definitely put a hurting on anything that was around. So yeah, started going down. Got invited, started going down to the cabin. I want to say it was probably, 1990, 1993, in that area there. And, kind of been going hard ever since. So owe a lot to these guys, obviously. Hopefully we can keep going.
Absolutely.
Name's Brian Rumley. Just like everybody said, we're all huge into the outdoors. Not just deer, turkey, fishing. We'll do just about anything outdoors, whether it's food plots, taking a walk in woods with kids, trying to get them introduced into hunting, whether it be squirrels, rabbits, anything. As long as we're in the outdoors, I think every one of us are enjoying our time. Met these guys pretty much through, I would say, Doug Rowland back in the day, and then through baseball, and just became a close-knit group and a close hunting group.
Scott Murray, same thing, obviously. We've been friends since high school, basically. Other than Ryan, he's kind of the baby, but
He's a little young. I don't understand that whole thing.
through
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
through his parents being really good friends with our parents, and basically, seeing him kind of grow up a little bit younger than us. So, but he fits right in with our group, and my passion obviously is deer in general. Just obviously bow hunting is my favorite thing to do, but I still love gun hunting, muzzleloader hunting, and then everything else outdoors. Can't get enough. And I just personally, whether it's someone I just met or friend that I've had for years, I love walking property, trying to put the pieces together to shoot a big mature buck. That's what I like to do more than anything else out there. Just put the pieces together to try to kill a mature deer. So
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Tim Murray. I'm kind of the patriarch of the group.
I see that.
What I really, really enjoyed, and I've known a lot of these guys since they were teenagers, and of course my sons, but they have no idea how good I feel when they shoot a big buck. makes me pumps me up. Don't get me wrong, I want to shoot a big one too, but when they shoot one, I'm as high as a kite.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty cool and I think, I'm sitting here and I'm looking, you're the patriarch of this group sitting here, but I think there's so many people that can listen to this, and it is, whether it's a father or an uncle or a grandfather, that you are in that position. You get to see all these young guys grow up into men and have their own kids, and what really started, the grandmother or the mother is the one that really can say, I'm the one that's brought this family together, but what all these men have turned into and what they do and the success they've had, a lot of it goes back to you. So it's pretty cool to see that, and it absolutely should be proud of that for sure.
Well, at one time they used to follow behind me. Now they're way ahead of me.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I got a Paul Murray. My favorite thing to do is archery hunt whitetails. Right behind that is spring turkey hunting and trout fishing, just like the rest of these guys. Honestly, I couldn't be more proud of these guys. When we started Hunters Creek Outdoors, Hunters Creek Outdoors really started, in the early 90s, and then as myself, Jamie, Doug, Scott, Brian, all of a sudden we started to get married and having kids, and life started. Kind of got away from videoing until Ryan got us involved in 2014. Since 2014 or 2013, the amount of work and dedication that these guys have put in to Hunters Creek Outdoors has blown me away. They're dedicated, and they're focused, and like I said, I couldn't be more proud of these guys. I mean, it is a lot of people watch hunting videos on TV or on YouTube. The amount of work that goes into not only editing the whole after side of it, making sure you take the camera, making sure the battery is charged, trying to get all the shots that we can get. It's difficult, and like I said, I'm extremely proud of these guys.
Yeah.
Because they.
So I guess back to when you guys started this. So obviously, a lot of people would know you guys from Facebook or Instagram, but before that, I mean, this group of guys all kind of started getting together as you were all, I take it, about the same age, and you guys said, hey, let's start a group that we call ourselves Hunters Creek Outdoors. I guess that's kind of what I want to dig into here at this part, and probably you just start with you.
Sure.
Is like, how did it all get started?
I mean, I can. I just think about, the big camera. Remember the VHS cassette,
Full-size VHS shoulder mount.
mounted camera, and then we, videoed a few, and then we were killing some pretty good deer. And I just remember, me saying to the guy that mounts a lot of our deer or whatever, like, we're like real guys hunting. That's kind of what it really started as, just real guys. When I say real guys, I mean like working, a lot of weekend warrior type, things. I think that's how it really got started. I mean, just, we have so much old footage, and that obviously people can't see, just because the transfer from that footage to digital age now, that it's just tough to see really what we have accomplished and things that we've done over the years.
We're, I guess, at the point where we grew up, we all grew up on Hunters Creek, or the majority of us grew up on Hunters Creek Road. We didn't even have cable TV when we were in high school.
No kidding.
We had 4 channels and a VHS player, and until we got cable TV, that's all we did was watch hunting videos.
Yeah.
We were watching the Drurys or Bill Jordan or Monster Bucks and stuff like that, and we were like, well, why don't we start doing that? So enter the shoulder mounted VHS camera, and then eventually handy cams and whatnot. And we started shooting deer on film. I was like, wow, we could do this. Well, like I said before, that's where life began.
Yeah.
And we kind of never, always thought about it, but just never kind of, stuck to it until Ryan got involved with some guys who were going to put together a TV show, a local outdoor TV show, and they wanted to know if we could help them out with some filler footage. Unfortunately, the project kind of fell apart, and at that time, I looked at Jamie and Ryan and these guys and said, we bought cameras because we had to have cameras, and now we have a couple of industry contacts. Want to try and do this, and 5 or 6 years later, whatever it is, we're still going.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work. It is a passion of mine. I think when we were back in the early 90s, when we would get together, and if Dougie shot a buck, if we got it over to his garage, and we got the deer hung up, and everyone's hanging out, listening to the story, I could see the excitement in everyone's face about when he's telling the story. And then we heard the story 3 or 4 times the same night. It was the same excitement. Everybody was so. I was like, wow, what if we could capture this?
Yeah.
And that's how it. So why don't we start videoing? And here we are.
Yeah.
20 or almost 30 years later.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to with the outdoors and with hunting. Like, everybody loves a good story. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And then the community of it. So it's just not hard to, what you guys are doing. I would challenge you to even try to get some of that old content digitized and get it on YouTube, because it's just, people eat it up. And especially so from looking at it from my perspective, and I don't know if this is one of the reasons why you guys did or not, but what you guys do by, you posting the success you have and everything you put into getting there in the off season and everything with that, it engages a ton of people, and it shows them that New York can be and it's a good deer hunting state. Are we Iowa? No. Are we Ohio? No. But it's like, you guys all sitting around this table, everybody shot good bucks this year, and we're just, regular guys in New York.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you put the work in and you're out there getting after them, you can have the success. So
yeah.
I think that's the power of what you guys, you've built that platform. I don't know how many followers you have, like 5,000-ish.
Yeah, somewhere around
Facebook.
around 5,800 on Facebook.
That's a big number for Western New York. It's not like we're New York City or something like that. So the amount of people that you interact with and that see what you're up to, is powerful. And it's pretty cool that you guys are doing what you're doing with that, and continue to, because it definitely helps get the next generation involved. And I know Doug touched on that, getting the next generation into the outdoors and taking them on hikes and walk. Well, that was Brian. That was you that said that. But it's like, that's what I think is starting to drive me now, and drive probably you guys in the room too, is getting your kids into it. Like, get them out there, get them shooting guns, get them, taking their hunter safety course, seeing stuff in the wild. Like, that's what gets me revved up, is that next generation. So it's pretty cool there. Now, Jamie, you were pretty involved, like you and Paul were pretty involved in getting this all going off the ground, correct?
Yeah, I would think, with me and Paul and, obviously Ryan and Scott, and, we probably got it, I guess, got it started. And then, if I remember correctly, then I think we talked to Brian and Doug and another one of our friends that's not here, just to let them, because we've been so, tight as a group for so long, just kind of let them know what was going on and what our plans were and everything, and kind of everybody was on board. And to be honest with you, it was pretty easy because we've all been friends for so long. We played hockey together for 25 years. It just kind of, it was an easy transition, I guess you would say, and it's really gone well. I think we're all doing pretty well with it.
Yeah. So Ryan, how the hell did you get hooked up with these guys?
Well,
because I know they said it's a good story, so it's got to be good.
my dad, Tim got my dad into hunting. I don't know what it was, the 70s
Okay,
probably.
so Tim, you're friends with Ryan's dad then?
Yeah, Ryan's dad and I played softball.
Oh yeah.
Together, and he was just starting a bow hunt tonight. And I says, why don't you come down with me to our camp down there? I says, I'll get you a shot at a buck. And he kind of looked at it and how is this guy going to guarantee you a shot at a buck? Well, anyways, the first time he came down there with me, I walked him into the woods, sitting on the ground back then. That's before tree stands were popular. And he says, listen, about 7:45, there's going to be 2 does and a 4-pointer come out of these pine trees. You're 20 yards away. The wind's right. Kill them. And he says, I'll be back in about 2.5 hours. So I came back about 10:30, And there he was with a 4-pointer
No
on the ground.
shit. That's
and,
awesome.
And that hooked him, you
Yeah.
know. That hooked him. And like Ryan was saying, my wife and I have been friends with his mom and dad for a long, long time. Matter of fact, we're going to Alaska this summer
Cool.
to enjoy it. So I've known Ryan since he's been a baby. And one thing I got to tell you about him, I never saw a young guy more into outdoors and hunting than him. I mean, he was into it from the time he was 6 years old.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty neat.
Look at the man you've become right here.
I don't know about a man, but I've gotten taller.
Got good facial hair. That's good.
There you go. But, and all these guys put an awful lot of effort, hard work into the hunting, and it's like a job. If you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yep.
And all the hard work, it doesn't work. It
Yeah.
doesn't work for us. It's the planning and the scheming, and the day after deer season closes, we start planning for next year.
Absolutely.
You
Oh,
know.
so how long? Because I guess Scott and I really never talked about this. How long have you had your property and your camp down there? You're down in Chautauqua County there.
Chautauqua County. My dad started taking me down there when I was 12 years old,
Wow,
and I'll be 70 in about 3 weeks.
that's
So
awesome.
I've been hunting that woods for that long, 58 years maybe.
Wow.
And in 1975, we bought a one-room schoolhouse, and we converted that to a hunting camp. And that's where we hunted for a long, long time. Well, we had a pitcher pump, and it was an old one-room schoolhouse, and it closed in 1943, grades 1 through 8. Okay. So, anyways, we had that, and it was infested with mice and bats, and it was cool, and it kept us warm and dry. And what was nice about it is, in the fall of the year, when these guys were young, they'd be down there with us, and they weren't getting in trouble in some bar someplace.
Right.
Every weekend in the fall, we'd be down there. We'd be down there getting ready to hunt.
Why are you guys smiling? Were you? You went to bed and you were
No, but at least when they were with us.
right.
And his father and a few of our friends were down there. I thought they were very good role models for the young kids. But my wife didn't particularly like it down there, and I have a daughter. So when my sons and I were down there in the fall hunting, my wife and my daughter would go Christmas shopping and whatever women do when we're not around. Well, anyways, my daughter started college, and she wasn't hanging out as much with her mom as she did before. So I wanted to build a nice place so her mom could come down and enjoy it with us from time to time. So about 11 years ago, we traded up a little bit from the old schoolhouse to where our camp is now.
Nice.
And I think these guys really enjoy coming down there. And at the end of the year, we have the last weekend of muzzleloader season. We all connect down there, and we cook a lot of venison up and just have a great weekend down there. All of us swapping all the hunting lies from the season and kind of gearing down for next season.
It's awesome. Yeah, and having a hunting camp is we have a family hunting camp, and it's funny because I'm seeing it, like our hunting camp kind of change, and it's gone through the years where we were growing up, and my brother and I, kind of similar story. We were down there with my dad every weekend, especially my brother. I was like maybe the daughter of the family where I would go shopping with mom. I like doing that stuff. That's why my brother is a little bit further ahead on the hunting side than I was, but. Anyway, I don't want to get too far into that, but yeah, that's kind of uncomfortable to talk about. But I can't look anybody in the eye now. So, but having that family hunting camp now with like my generation, Scott's a little bit older than I am, but like we've got young kids and stuff, and it's challenging. You kind of go through that period where everybody's you're in that in between, and it's like you're not able to spend 3 nights in a row at camp like you used to when you had nothing to worry about at home. So it's like, I think we're all kind of at that same stage where it was all in, and then it's like, oh my God, we've all got so much going on, and then hopefully it all comes right back together. But having that hunting camp, it always gives you that spot for everybody to come back, where if you don't have that, it's challenging. I think we sit here and I think hunters, you guys have a similar setup as my family where you have a place to go. And if you're a new hunter that wants to get into it and you don't have that, or you don't have friends and family that are in it, it's very challenging to figure out like where to even start.
Especially if you start late, if you're in your late 20s.
Right.
Probably the best part of your young life is past you.
Right.
So if you grew up in a hunting atmosphere, you're way ahead of somebody that's trying to get into it cold.
Yep.
Cold. And I can't wait. I can't wait for my grandsons. I mean, they're 5 years. They're going to be cranking up, and it's going to be a lot of fun with that. But understand something: when you're single, and you don't have any children, you can hunt every weekend.
Yeah.
You can really hit it hard. Then you get married and children and responsibilities, and you got to pick your spots. But I'm full circle now. I'm retired.
Yeah. So you can hunt all you want.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I let $15 walk by this year, and because I knew I had another day to hunt.
Yep.
You know.
It's awesome. Living the dream, man.
Yeah.
You know, I will just to add on to that, for that's kind of what Hunters Creek Outdoors, what we've kind of built it for is, for people who are looking for information. I try to put it in all our videos. If you have any questions, email us, call me, or call us. Message us on Facebook, because that's why we want to do this. We want to help people. Not only shoot bigger deer or whatever, but just enjoy their time in the outdoors more.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this.
Yeah. And I think that's what folks like us should be trying to focus on right now, is because if you watch the outdoor shows, it's like if it's not 170 inches and you didn't shoot a good deer, and it's like if you're a new hunter wanting to get into the sport, if you're a new hunter that wants to get into the sport, it's like that is overwhelming, because it's like you don't see that. I mean, you can hunt your whole life and you may never see a buck that big. So you're gonna say something, Jamie?
I actually was, because I was just going to go touch back on it. I mean, just like kind of like Paul said, passing it on, etc. I mean, we do a lot of stuff with youths. Rushford Lake Conservation Club. We do an archery clinic out there with them, trying to pass it on to the next generation. I mean, me personally, I'm thrilled that I shot the deer that I got this year, because my boy turns 12 in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I know next year, I mean, am I going to be out there hunting for myself at some point? Yeah, no question. But am I going to spend the majority of my time sitting behind my kid, trying to put a deer in front of him? Absolutely. And to me, that's what it's all about. I mean, everybody that I can look at right here, we've all shot good deer throughout the course, of our hunting careers already. And, to be able to share that with somebody else, maybe that's somebody that's less fortunate, whether they be a 12-year-old that's just getting started, or maybe the 25-year-old that contacts us and says, what am I doing wrong? What can you help me out with? So to me, that's the juice.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it gets to the point where you almost get to a spot where you have to kind of start to sacrifice a little bit of your time. And, sacrifice is a strong word, and I've used this on a few of the last podcasts about some of my friends that have, they're trying to help a friend get into it. And you are sacrificing, because, if you want to go out and if you are really on it and you're a successful hunter, you have your way of doing it. It's less scent in the woods when you got somebody else with you. It's less noise, all the things you got to worry about. But the reward of seeing someone have the success, or just have the experience and the joy of seeing a deer get shot, or even just seeing a deer or seeing a squirrel, a turkey, or whatever. I mean, I was with my buddy 2 years ago and helped him get his first deer, and it was a button buck, but it's by far one of the greatest hunting experiences I've ever had in my entire life. He made a great shot, and the excitement on his face, and knowing that he got to take that deer home and feed his family with it. And it's funny, because this year I've been kind of reflecting back. I mean, I had my best season I've ever had, but I didn't spend enough time to feel like I helped somebody get going. Like, that feeling I got helping my buddy Connor was like, it felt so good. Yeah, I didn't pull the trigger, but just seeing him and seeing that happiness felt so good. This year, I was like all about me, and I was out there, and I had a great year, but it's like, I almost feel like I cheated myself. Like, I didn't do enough to help somebody else. So I don't know, it's kind of cool, like holding yourself accountable to that, and what you're trying to accomplish. And I'm pretty involved with backcountry hunters and anglers, and I really want to put the energy I can forth all year round with them to try to help people into the outdoors, and whether it's fishing or turkey hunting or deer hunting, whatever, help people get into it. And you know, so I think you guys are a lot the same. Like that's, you know, the platform you had, we're able to do that. So
Yeah.
We try to spoon feed some of our friends as best we can, but
I mean, I think too, like with us, like whoever shoots a deer, we're just excited. Like to me, I don't have to shoot a deer. I just want to see my buddy. Like I see my dad. Like when I was 12, you don't really think about it till now, but I was just a little fat pudgy kid walking down, you know, dragging my feet, kicking. He's, you know, trying not to yell, but he's like, "Quit making so much noise," you know. And he'd hang a stand 40 yards away, and I'm like the whole time, like, "Oh, my dad's hunting." In reality, he's not. He's just watching me, and I shot a spike, and it's pretty cool. And I don't know. I look back, like him putting all that time into me. He didn't have to do that, but he wanted to, and like I think it's more exciting for him now to watch me hunt. He doesn't have to kill a deer. I mean, he hasn't shot a doe. I mean, he hasn't really shot anything in the last couple years, but he shot a couple nice bucks. But to him, it's more him relaxing now and being down at camp. He doesn't have to shoot a deer. Before, he'd shoot a whole pile of them, but now he's watching us do it, and I think it's just as much enjoyment out of watching all of us grow up and do it together.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just at the end of the day, it's just a deer. I mean, it doesn't make you a better person or nothing, but I don't know. It's just.
Well, I guess it's like the stages. It's like the stages of your hunting, you know, cycle. Like I was joking that I wasn't all in when I was younger. I'm kind of in that stage right now where I'm like, now I'm wanting to just put them down. Like I'm all in on that right now. My brother went through that 10 years ago. You know, you guys, I don't know about all of you guys, but like you go through those stages, and Tim, you probably are at that same point like his father, where you don't need to put up huge numbers every year. You want to be out there and just experiencing it, enjoying it. Things slow down a little bit.
I just want to shoot the one.
Yeah.
The one. In 1979, I missed a little 4-pointer about 8 o'clock in the morning. And for me, I was 29 years old, and I was sick about that. I mean, 8 yards, I shot over his back. And I kicked myself in the butt all day long. That afternoon, I shot the biggest deer in New York State with a bow that year, a 14-pointer. Same spot I missed the 8-pointer that morning. And that is, other than my children being born, was the most exciting event in my life, shooting that big buck. And that just goes to show you, when you're out in the woods, you never, ever, ever really know what's right around the next tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drives me. It drives me. I might never shoot a deer that big again. But then again, opening day next year I might.
Yeah.
You know. And that's what drives me. As far as shooting deer, I don't know how many. Over all these years, 58 years of doing it, very, very many deer. Matter of fact, I made a promise to my wife I wasn't going to get any mounted unless they're exceptional, because I got like 12 on the wall or something like that. But that's what drives me. For me personally, to go hunting is the opportunity to shoot something extraordinary someday, and just be out in the woods.
Yeah.
Out in the woods. And I really get a kick out of watching these guys hunt. Like I said before, and when they're successful, it kind of makes me stick my chest out. I think maybe I had a little something to do with it.
Absolutely.
You know? So, but that's what we do, and what a great hobby, what a great passion there is. And as far as bringing young people into the sport, when you're as old as I am and you've seen it progress, I mean, I can remember my dad taking me down to the town of Westfield opening day of the shotgun season back then. It'd be 400 or 500 people on the sidewalks in Westfield trying to get into diners. They're all wearing their Woolrich red, smoking cigars.
Yep.
And all those people, all that's dried up now. All that's gone.
I can't even wrap my head around that. Like I hear the same stories from our area, and it's like,
Yeah.
I've never known it that way, so I just can't even wrap my head around it.
Up by our hunting camp, there all the side roads and the main roads, there'd be 150, 200 cars parked alongside the road, and they'd be shooting. My dad used to tell me if he didn't see 45 deer by noon on opening day, it was a slow day.
Yeah.
Because there were so many people in the woods. And now there's less and less and less and less. And if we don't do something, the active hunters, to promote our sport, in 30 years, who knows what's going to happen
terrifying.
to it.
Yeah.
And then now we're at a stage where, when I first started going hunting with my dad down there, we had thousands of acres to hunt. Nobody ever posted their land. And it started getting smaller and smaller. All the old farmers up on the hills there, when they were too old to work the farms anymore, they wanted to give it to their kids. Their kids didn't want any part of that hard work for minimal amount of return.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up selling the farms, and a lot of hunters. And as soon as they bought them, they started posting. So our land started shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking to where we hunt. And we didn't know about food plots back then, and all the stuff that we take for granted now. But it's been an education for us too.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really neat back in the old days too to see all those guys. I mean, here's a young kid with wide eyes looking at all these guys.
Yeah.
And back then there weren't very few pickup trucks. People would throw their deer over their front fender or over their trunk. And I was excited when I'd see a buck on the back of a car. Even if it was a spike, it was.
You do that now, it's headline news that people are, it's crazy how things have changed, because it was such an acceptable thing back then, and now it's, and it's like you guys post stuff, and anybody posts things, like you got to be thinking about, is that deer's tongue hanging out, or how much blood is there? Because, I mean, that can totally turn people right off, and it's tough. I mean, it's a much different world now than it was back then.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely is. And with social media, it can promote a lot of good things, but it also can promote a lot of bad things too. And one thing I'm very proud of this group is we don't do things illegal, okay? And there's a lot of people in this industry that operate on the lighter side of gray. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But we try to do it right. And the food plot aspect of what we do is just as exciting for me.
Yeah, it's a preparation
It's
of everything.
a preparation, absolutely. All the planning, all the scheming. Who's going to be down? What are we going to do? Are we going to prune apple trees this year? Are we going to plant some? Are we going to use soybeans this year, or alfalfa, or whatever?
Yeah.
And we argue back and forth what we want to do.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it. And what's nice about it too is when we get together in the summertime, and we'll start around the first part of August, we'll start discussing strategies for food plots and stand locations and stuff like that. Drink a few beers and sit around a campfire and shoot the breeze with everybody. It's like community.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Now, Jamie, you had the mic a minute ago, and you had something that we kind of moved off that topic a little bit, but
Yeah, I was just going to add to the topic of, and I know, Tim has basically already said it, but to expand, maybe not even expand on it, but at least to relate to it. I mean, I've been taking my boy turkey hunting down. Obviously, he's, hasn't turned 12 yet, so he can't hunt here. But we've been going to Tennessee and Kentucky and Ohio, and I can tell you firsthand, sitting behind him when the turkey's coming, the bird's gobbling or whatever, and he's pretty much stone cold. Well, I'm shaking like a leaf. Like I'm ready to pass out. I'm ready to throw up. Like it's but when it happens, when it comes together, say last year for sure, we're down in Tennessee for hunting for a cure for St. Jude's, which is a great organization in itself, and sitting in the blind and birds coming or whatever, and I'm like, out of my mind because my heart's going to come out of my chest. But when it happens, and when you turn and you see your own kid and he's high-fiving and fist-pumping at 11 years old, to me,
that's everything.
That's you've done it right there. So
yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
How'd you guys get involved in going down there to do that hunt?
Well, so my brother-in-law has been going. He actually, and if I remember correctly, he ended up through social media. So my brother-in-law Todd ended up hooking up, seeing it somehow, sent a Facebook message to, I believe it was Keith Hickman, is how it all got started. And I want to say last year was maybe his 12th or 13th year. It's awesome because it's a $200 donation, and you try to raise as much money as you can. All of it, 100% goes to St. Jude's. And what happens down there, they take like between 85 and 100 kids. Everybody, it's in the surrounding area of Savannah, Tennessee, where landowners will they donate their land for their youth weekend. You're assigned a guide, and you're able to take a youth out hunting. And I mean, it's a win-win. I mean,
Yeah.
great. You get to turkey hunt. We get to go a month and a half before our season even starts, and get in on the hunt, and everything goes to a good cause. It's a win-win. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I think Carter's gone now. I think this is going to be his 5th year. We're leaving in middle of March or end of March. I mean, I can't say enough about it. I mean, it's just it's great because I think, kind of to piggyback what Tim said. Now, when a kid turns 12 years old, if he hasn't gone yet or he hasn't been exposed to yet, he's into sports. He's into it's a lot of competition, but opportunities like this to go out of state, now you're talking, he's been going since he was 6. The seed's been planted a little earlier than, what we can do here in New York. So, it's a win-win.
Yeah, and turkey hunting is such a good gateway. I mean, I was never really, my dad would take me, but I was never really that big into it. But the youth hunting and what they do to allow kids to get out there early and hunt turkeys, like, it's just such a great way to, just watching my brother and some of my cousins, it was always like, I mean, we'd have like 10 adults for one kid. It was like, and then as soon as all the nieces and nephews got to the point where they were too old to hunt, all the, my dad and his brothers, and they were all bummed because it's like there's nobody to take out anymore. We had so much fun going out that extra week early to help get these kids a bird. It was incredible. So
yeah. Adoption. And those birds.
yeah,
Well, I think that goes with even just taking a kid pond fishing, man. Just go get them, catch some bass. I mean, a kid that's never even caught a fish before, or casted their own rod to be able to catch a 10-inch largemouth bass out of a pond, they don't care.
No.
They catch sunfish, and they don't care. Just get them out to do something. And I've had the opportunity in the last couple of years to teach a few, even a couple little girls how to shoot a single shot 22, and they sit there for a couple hours. They'll shoot up 500 round box of ammo, and enjoy it. They've never had any opportunity to ever do that before, and even if it's that one opportunity that they got and they went back home, I don't know, hopefully mom and dad were all right with it at that point, but they did it. They learned a little bit about the safety, and maybe they take that with them in a few years to come. And it's the same thing, you catch a few little fish, and that progresses to going fishing for something again, and maybe it's a little bigger, and they just evolve into that. And I've taught a few little kids how to shoot archery, and again, if nothing else, you at least planted that seed, and they know it's there, and maybe they grab onto it 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and they take it back up again.
right. And it's just getting that, whether it be shooting a gun, like getting that respect for a weapon and not to point it this direction, that, like, the stuff that you learn at a young age. I think everybody sitting around this, we were all around that growing up, so you just kind of like knew to respect it. But if you're not around it, and if you're not out there shooting a gun or throwing a line in the lake, like, you don't even know. Yep. And that's what's mind-boggling to me, is like, we grew up in that environment, so it's natural to us. But folks outside of that didn't have somebody to take them out there, like, oh my God, it's a fish, like, that's crazy. It's like, no, there's like thousands of them in this pond.
Yeah, they're
it's
everywhere.
not a big deal.
Yeah, right, and it just
throw
becomes
a shiny hook
just
in there.
exposure.
That's
Just
thing.
the exposure.
You gotta make it fun for them too. Like, if it's not fun, they're not gonna like. If they're miserable doing it, they're not gonna like it. I remember being a kid having a stupid little Yahtzee game and walkie-talkies. You hit a random button and make all these crazy noises. My dad sitting. You would never see a deer, but it was fun.
It was fun.
And they got me. They got me hooked.
I think this year, Brian, you should put hooks on your kid's lure so he can actually catch the fish. He takes them off so he doesn't catch his other little brothers and sisters. He hasn't caught a fish in 2 years, but
He's still out there casting.
Yeah, but it's fun.
he likes to cast. Yeah, he's a good caster.
How old are you have 2 kids, or?
Yeah, I have 3 kids, 2 boys, 8 and 5, and a daughter that's 3. So they're getting exposed to it a little bit for sure. We got a pond behind the house that, like Doug said, I have kept a couple years where it's a plain lure, go cast.
Yeah.
But we're getting there, and they love the outdoors, going back, whether it's throwing sticks in the woods or seeing a squirrel or a deer track. So
Yeah.
it's getting them there. It's getting the seed planted, like everyone said, and they enjoy it. So it's a good time spent with family, like we all know about, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. So you guys are all gathered here today because you guys met with your taxidermist this morning, because there was a pile of bucks getting mounted. Then you guys all were picking out your mounts. So I guess, Scott, you got the microphone. So you had you had a humdinger of a year, but you waited till the last minute to do it. So
Yeah.
what'd you get? You were after. You had a couple deer in particular. You were after.
Yeah, I had a couple deer behind my house. I was after one in particular who everyone here has known me talk about him for 4 years now, or 3 years now. I figured he's 6.5. But I had 2 other ones on camera behind my house as well that I really would have liked to kill. So early in the season, I mean, Ryan was actually right there with me. The one I passed up a really nice buck. He thought I was crazy. We actually tried to do the switcheroo, and I tried giving him my bow, and we had him at the end. He was at like 8 yards, but I had him at like 15 yards broadside.
That was a holiday.
That was
wasn't it?
Columbus
Day.
Day,
Like
that Monday.
3 o'clock.
Yeah, like we were just climbing in the stand, and
That day was fire, man. That was.
I
whatever it
was
was.
literally
Could've been great.
2 steps up in the ladder stand, and he was like, huge buck. And he knew that I told him there was a 10-pointer that we watched, which is kind of ironic in a way because I ended up killing that 10-pointer that we were talking
Also,
about.
that's the buck that you ended up getting with your.
And that piece,
Okay.
yeah, that was the one I shot with the shotgun. So he was right away. He's like, it's 10-pointer, it's 10-pointer. And Ryan and a
get
few of these other guys, they can look at a deer in a matter of a split second. They know it's a 10-pointer with a flyer or whatever. And I'm more or less, it's a big buck. Am I going to shoot it or not? I don't ever really pay that close attention to the points. I just, if it looks like a big mature deer, usually I'm ready to fire. But he's like, it's a 10-pointer, and then when it showed itself, I realized, yeah, it may have been a 10-pointer, but it had really small tines, and it was a mature deer. There's no doubt in my mind. I think we did see it a couple times spotting that field at night, that we were hunting near. But yeah, he walked by, and then a week later down camp, I had a beautiful 8-pointer walk out it, and when he first shows himself, you can hear me. I was self-filming. You could hear me say, "Are you kidding me?" Because he was one of those deer that probably shouldn't pass. But I killed a lot of deer, and I feel like there's more to it than just, and I had those other bucks on mine. So passed up that deer, and then opening day gun season, I went to my buddies for the afternoon, and saw another real nice buck that I let walk. So I had a really good season, like up until, even if you asked me a day before I killed the buck that I killed with my gun, I would have told everyone I had an excellent season because all these guys killed great bucks.
Yeah.
Our good buddy Jeremy Ortiz, we call him Spaniard. He hit a buck behind his house. I helped him track it. That started the season off real early. It was awesome. I was with Jamie on his recovery for his deer. So
Which is a good thing.
I didn't even think that I thought my season was great already. It was complete. It was, I did not have any problem that I didn't shoot a deer. I didn't need to kill a deer. I killed 2 does with my bow. My son helped me recover the one, so I was good. And then just so happens, last Saturday of gun season, I, ran into that 10-pointer that I think Ryan was trying to convince me that it was him when we were together, but it wasn't. And shot him. Long story short, I didn't think it was a great hit by the way he reacted, as close as he was. Went back about 5 hours later.
Just on that story, real quick though, like you were super aggressive on that deer.
Yes.
Right, because it was in like the last hour.
Yeah, it was
Your
about
afternoon was kind of a mess. The hunt you had planned didn't.
Yeah, it just
come
was all
together.
luck. I mean, my friend showed up at my house. He goes, "Hey, do you want to just do a little push?" And he did. And the east side of the property, he pushed, and a coyote came out. I shot 3 times with the coyote, missed. He had to get back to watch his kids. We knew that this buck, we had seen him last year this time of year, crossing the road, which is 300 yards away, but into this field. So I go, I'll sit in the stand on the west end, and I go, let's just see where maybe he's crossing the road, and if we can set it up where we can get him in daylight, maybe we'll set up. We talked about throwing a cardboard box just on the knob on the hill about 100 yards off the road and just lay with snow camo during muzzleloader season.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens that at 5 after 4, I look up and he's 30 yards across the road and slowly making his way, but just kicking snow and looking for soybeans and whatever green he could find. And at like 4:30 maybe, maybe I got about 15 minutes, 10 minutes before legal shooting, I approached 60 yards and he kind of made a little closer, and I snort wheezed and grunted, and next thing you know, he just beelined right to the wood line.
And you were like snapping,
Yeah, I
raking
was
the brush
cracking
and stuff.
branches, and I mean, if you know this buck, we called him Short Tail. He walked with a limp, even when we,
He's a gangster.
He only had, you could tell he was just a, when we put a spotlight on him in the summer, he didn't have half a tail. I mean, that he never ran hard. He always was just, it almost seemed like he had an attitude. I'm not saying I took that into account, but I'm thinking that's why when I was doing all that, he was pissed off, and he wanted to see what buck was there.
Right.
And it was obviously, the fatal mistake that he made.
Yeah.
So, and then, and then I just so happened the season, I got him. The season ended, and I went to, muzzleloader camp, down to our camp, like my dad said, and then we've been going to where Dougie's a member of a camp. We went there, and I was gonna hunt there the next day with those guys, but the sign was probably the worst we've ever seen the swamps. And the sign wasn't good, and just so happens that Dad came home from camp, said, "I'm going to hunt behind your house," and that's the luck of it. I told these guys, at 10:30, we were watching the Bills, and everyone was kind of winding down. I'm like, I'm going to go home hunt with my dad, and it was, best decision I could have made that he was going, because he, dropped him off at the stand. He was going to hunt in. I had an idea of where I wanted to go. If I said it to myself, if I can hunt any more days behind my house, this is where I want to be, and I went there, and a buck that I got a bunch of pictures on early in the season walked by at 80, 90 yards, and I smoked him. So just a great
In a 1 week span.
in a 1 week span. It was the last area of gun season and the second last day of muzzleloader season.
Yep.
I mean, just I already, before those bucks were killed, it was already a good season for me.
Yeah.
Just because of the success of all these guys.
Yeah. You come into the gym on the day after the beginning of the week after you shot the buck with your guns that Sunday. Was it Saturday night?
Saturday night is when I got recovered.
So then you come in, you're like, yeah, I got it. And it was a beautiful buck. He was, almost 20 inside?
Yeah, it was 19 and a half inside. Yeah, he scored 130 and a half inches, rough score from us. And
so you're telling me, like, that's one of the best bucks I've ever shot. And he's like, I got to get it mounted. And then, like, a week later, you go and you shoot another one, and that one measured.
Yeah, 132.
Yeah.
I mean,
So you're like, well, I got to get this one mounted, That's how it works.
Which both of them, obviously, I was not convinced, but, like, it didn't take much convincing. But like Dad said, he said in 20 years from now, you're going to look up the ball, you're not going to think about the $500 you spent on the mount. You're not even going to think about that. So it's, it's great. It's fine. I like I said, it was just going to be a great year.
Yeah.
And just seeing these guys killing deer just makes me happy.
Let me add something to that. That Saturday night, he sends me a text with a picture of that big 10-pointer he shot there around 4:30, and I text him back. I says, I was getting to worry about you this year, and I said, but I should have known better.
Yeah. He was so. I mean, Scott and I almost every morning we're at the gym and we work out, and it's like, I think we talk 45 minutes of hunting and we lift weights for 15 minutes. Just all year round. It doesn't matter. But he was he never was like worked up. Like he's like, this is my game plan. I'm not getting pictures of this one, but I got. So like you stuck with it the entire season. Like you hunted the entire season, didn't get worked up, and I think that is like a lesson for everybody who listens to this, is that you can get yourself so jammed up. There's so many things you can second guess. Am I in the right stand? Is this deer still alive? But if you just stay the course and just let the season play out,
you never know.
You never know what can happen. And in 1 week you shoot two of the best bucks of your entire life.
Yeah. I mean,
just like that.
The fact is, you got to be there. You have
Yeah.
to. And I'm gonna say, it's so easy because I'm a culprit of this. It's so easy to not be there. I mean, again, there's life. There's nasty weather. I mean, I work outside a fair amount of times, and I mean, it's not sometimes real inviting to go out and spend the day out there again. And but when you do have guys sending you pictures, Ryan sending you pictures of the deer he's getting, Paul's updating, some of his stuff there. Scott is almost always texting somebody to see where we're going tomorrow. What's the plan? Who's seeing what? What are we doing? Scott's a huge pusher, and I will say, Scott's pushed me. Maybe not to push, but he's convinced me. All right, we should go tomorrow. Let's go tomorrow, and it's. I mean, that little bit of nudging is paid off huge for me with some of the deer I've killed, and I don't kill maybe this deer that these guys kill, but
it don't matter.
They're good enough for this guy.
Yeah, and
but I will say, it's a huge huge benefit for a guy, to have other friends around that, again, are sharing the text messages that come in randomly. You're at work and you're getting text message at 11:30 because someone's off that day. And you're like, man, did he kill one? And well, he saw a couple, or man, deer are moving like crazy, or there's nothing going on, and it does keep you going, and you have to be there.
Yep. You can't kill him from the couch.
You can't, and that's a fact. So no matter what it is, the more you can be there, the better your chances are going to be.
Absolutely.
Then you got to put the other factors into that and have it all work out for you.
Yep. And I think that's for what you guys do at Hunters Creek with your social media stuff, with your pictures and this, sharing the success of not just you guys but other people that you know. That takes, so people that don't have a group that have a text message with 8 guys on it that are sending pictures nonstop of trail cameras and this and that, what you guys do, empowers people that don't have that support group. It's like, that's what I think you guys are about. That's what I'm about, is that just sharing the excitement of what's going on throughout the season is what it's all about there. So you guys got a dip?
I got a dip, man. I got to go and, I got
Nice
some,
chatting with
some
you.
shopping before I get off to work tomorrow morning.
Gonna get the groceries.
I got the groceries, laundry, and
Milk.
back. So, hey, guys, thank you for everything.
See it. Right.
See ya. Good seeing you again. Brian, nice meeting you.
Yes.
Take it easy. All right. And then there were 7.
Yeah.
All right.
That old saying, when a plan comes together, that's the cream.
It is. Especially,
The cream of the crop is leaving.
the cream of, yeah.
Oh boy. Here we go.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm taking my horns and I'm leaving. So Jamie, you got the mic. So I had you on our Breeding and Radio to share the story about your buck with your bow. But how'd the rest of your season go? Do you have any other luck?
Good, actually. I mean, I shot that doe the week before I shot that buck, and like we talked about before, I kind of said in my own mind, after that, because I'm not, just like any of these guys, nobody's a greedy person, and I said, if I'm going to shoot another buck, it's going to have to be something pretty spectacular, and sure enough, the last bunch of years, from the last 20 years or so, I've gone down to camp, in Chautauqua on opening day, and sure enough, as luck would have it, we see a nice deer, and it's heading my way, and a lot of times you find yourself. Make a long story short, I would have shot this deer in a second had I not shot the deer I shot with my bow.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent probably way more time, looking at it, and I was like, it's wide. It was probably 18 inches wide. Didn't have a lot for tine length, but it was definitely a mature deer, and had him check some does or whatever, and probably passed by me maybe 100 yards, broadside, just the ideal shot that you'd ever want, and we always joke because, when you're looking at a deer, especially a mature deer, when you're looking at a deer from behind, when you see him from behind, just they always seem to be bigger. They just look so much bigger. Well, he was facing me the whole way, and once it got past me and I was kind of looking at it, and I'm trying to get it on the camera and everything else that goes with it, and I'm like, oh man, that deer's better than what I thought I was. I was second guessing myself real quick, but didn't end up. I wasn't going to take a bad shot, so it is what it is, and saw a bunch of other small bucks after, so it was a great year. I mean, it was great because, I got to go in on Scott's recovery, which was awesome. Like we've always said. I mean, any time that we can be in the woods, whether it's us or for myself or my friends or whatever. So it was great. I mean, I really had a good year.
And it's so funny because like it's come up several times about like the enjoyment of going with somebody to recover their deer. Like that's. If you're new to hunting, sometimes you have a hard time wrapping your mind around that. You feel like you're bothering somebody. It's like, no, like if I hear somebody shot a deer, like if we're friends, you should be calling me because I'm gonna be pissed if I'm not there to.
Yeah, I want to be in on the track. I want to be in, and that's I think what's is great for us when we're filming. So now you got 2 guys sitting in the tree, and hey, okay, great. I'm filming Scott. I'm responsible for the camera, and we're responsible for the laughs together because you're laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's that, that's it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've Scott's a coyote killer. Like, we're a
Yeah,
magnet
you do
when
shoot
we
a lot
get
of coyotes.
so it seems like every time I mean, at least the last 3 or 4 years.
Shot with
You
your
know.
bow too, right?
Yeah,
One with
I've
your-
been
was
able
with
to.
your bow this year, right?
Yeah, I think he's been with me for 4. With
I
my
think
bow.
I've filmed him 4
Oh
times
shit!
4 with my bow.
with his bow. So it just, you know, it just makes the hunt even better. So now you got 2 guys. Yeah, are you taking a chance? Absolutely. I mean, we got a full and mature deer with 2 people sent instead of 1.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the risk that we're gonna take. And
Well, I was just gonna say real quick. I think as we've gotten more seasoned, yeah, we do take that risk, but we try to hunt every stand with the wind that we think's correct. So it doesn't matter if you got 2 guys there, unless it's really swirling or whatever. And I know all these guys take the precautions to, and I can't stress that enough too, like of being scent free, just so you're not leaving your scent in the woods when you're exiting or entering
Yeah.
the stand.
Be mindful of how you're getting to
Be-
your stand.
and
Not
leaving it.
brushing against stuff like that's
Yeah.
stuff. If you're not thinking about it, how many times have you gone to your tree stand and a deer ends up coming through and it stops at that one bush that you brushed
Yeah.
up against? It's like, how the
Yeah.
hell did you smell me? Like I just brushed up against
Yeah,
that.
exactly. So I think you know, with 2 people in a stand, like Jamie was saying, like I think we're just really mindful now of the way the wind's blowing for the stands that we hunt, and I think it's something that personally I think we should even get better at for our entering and our exit, even if it's a little more work. I think that would help us kill even more deer than what we do now. Personally, that's what I think.
For sure. So going around to Tim and Paul, you guys both shot. Tim, you shot your buck on opening day.
Opening day,
Yep.
opening day of gun season, and there's a prelude to that. Paul shot a really big 10-pointer on Veterans Day with his bow.
Okay, yours was with a bow. I thought yours was with a gun.
And we were hunting 2 stands on a northeast wind that day. And I don't know how many we have down in the camp. I think it's 39 stands. I'm not sure, but
Who's counting? Yeah.
yeah. But we only hunt our stands on the right wind. Well, anyways, Paul shot his buck, and I'll let him explain the events of that. But I was on a stand behind the camp. He was a mile away. And he texts me. He says, I stuck a good one. And this is about 7:30 in the morning. And I text him back. I says, okay. I says, let me hunt here another 45 minutes, and then I'll come over. And he texts me about 15 minutes later, and he says, I found the arrow. He says, but I got no blood. I says, okay, I'll be there. So I packed up and whipped over there, and found him in the woods, tracking a deer. And what a remarkable track job he did. I was impressed. He had a complete pass through, a little high on the entry, but right through the center of the lungs on the exit, and no blood. Drop of blood every 20 yards, just a drop. And come to a fork in a run, and he stayed on the main run. I went up the fork, and he says, "Hey, Dad, there he is. He's laying dead." So, anyways, we got him back, and we had a mock scrape in our food plot that Paul installed. We had a camera on, and he pulled a chip out of it. Went back to the camp, got his 10-pointer on it the night before,
No kidding.
and he's got this big 8-pointer. And I said to him, "I want to shoot that 8-pointer." Okay, well, then we got a lot of snow there that Friday or Thursday before opening day of gun season. And I walked our whole property. I walked the perimeter of our property, and I got one stand over there that's just a phenomenal opening day of gun stand. It's a natural.
Thank you.
It's a natural funnel. And when I walked it on that Friday, right next to the stand, it was a wide open scrape and 13 inches of snow. And the track.
No kidding.
The tracks were huge. Well, that morning we had an east wind, and it's right on the edge of a swamp. East wind would push my scent right over the swamp. A swamp with a lot of water. Well, anyways, make a long story short, about 20 after 7, I looked across the swamp, and here's a nice buck. I got a rifle, and he comes down by the old abandoned beaver dam. I turn around, I grab my rifle, I lost sight of him, and I just caught a glimpse of him, and he laid down. And I'm really concentrating. He's probably, 100 yards away from me, trying to pick him up, and I thought I heard a grunt. And then I'm still looking at the buck that bedded down, and I heard another grunt, and I turned, and right down the edge of this old abandoned beaver swamp, here comes my buck. And he's walking right at me. And I said, holy cripes, he's going to walk within 10 yards of me.
Oh, shit.
Well, about 85 yards, he stops, and he looks across the beaver swamp where the other buck bedded down. And he just froze there for a minute, but he was intently looking right in that area. And then whether the other buck grunted or whatever, I don't know. But anyways, he took 3 steps towards him, and then he stopped again. I said, well, now or never. It's probably 85, 90 yards, and I shot him. And he, you know, when a deer gets heart shot, he kicks his back legs up. Well, he kicked his back legs up, took 2 bounds, and stood there. So I shot him again. And I bought a 30-30 a couple years ago, a lever action Marlin, with a scope on it. And that second bullet I saw him actually hit the deer. I could see the deer take the shock of the slug. He turned, he took 2 bounds and went. And
So he was a dead man standing right
yeah,
there.
he was a dead man standing. I mean, I shot him right through the heart with the first shot. So that was pretty cool. That I told him I want to shoot that deer. And
I know that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that deer happened to walk by me.
Like Babe Ruth calling your shot.
Yeah, that was not the biggest rack deer I ever shot, but the biggest body deer I've ever shot. I didn't weigh him, which I'm really disappointed. But Ryan took a picture of me next to it. That deer's almost twice as long as I'm tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a big old buck. And it had a gore mark behind its left ear, and the antler had punctured his skull, and he had a lot of coagulated blood, pussy blood,
Oh, no kidding.
between his brain and his skull plate. So he probably wouldn't have made it through the winter anyway.
So that was, you think, a fighting wound, or
I think he was fighting with the one Paul shot,
probably?
but he was I want to say he was probably a 5.5-year-old buck. I mean, he was just a big buck. Matter of fact, I'll show you a picture after a while of him. He's just you know, we bone our deer and cut all the tallow off it and this and that. And if you get 35, 40 pounds of meat off of a deer, it's all bone. That's an average buck, an average deer. Well, this thing I got probably 70 pounds of meat off.
Did you really?
Yeah, I couldn't hardly lift it. I couldn't hardly lift a toad
Jesus.
on him. So it was just a big deer, and that's like I said before. You just never know.
Yeah.
You just never know, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
And I'm at that age, at that stage in my life where I don't have to shoot a big buck every year, but I sure love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's nothing better than that.
No, you know, I checked my trail camera after opening day. I want to say it was maybe the following weekend, and the night before opening day of gun season, that big 8-pointer was on our fluke plot, you know, hitting that mock
Hitting that
scrape.
I got
mock
him the night
scrape.
before. Well, that morning, I got him at 4 o'clock in the morning, heading down towards the swamp, coming off the scrape. And we had a bunch of pictures of him in velvet, and then I got a picture of him the night before, or that morning, like 4 in the morning, heading down to the swamp. And then 2 days before, on the Sunday before, it was like 1:30 in the afternoon, big empty tree standing on a scrape, and that buck's just crushing that tree.
That is a long deer.
Yeah, it's
My God.
That picture doesn't even do it justice.
I mean, it does it some justice. I mean, yeah, it is almost as long as you are, twice as long as you are.
Yeah.
From nose to back hoof. Jesus, what a big body deer. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was.
That'll warm you up on a 1-degree opening day, right?
Yeah.
Jesus.
He was so big when I walked up to him, I couldn't roll him over. I had a hard time rolling him over. And then normally we don't gut our deer in the woods. We take them back to the camp because we don't want the coyotes in the woods during deer season.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to gut him because I couldn't drag him.
Yeah.
And he was down in the old abandoned beaver pond, and there was a slope there. So I got him rolled over and got him gutted. But I couldn't pull him out of there like you normally would with your pull line and your drag line behind you. I had to face him and pull him out 2 foot at a time until I got him up on the flat.
These young guys didn't come help you?
No, they were still in the woods hunting.
Jesus.
I had no service.
No service, yeah.
No service, yeah. Yeah, it was so cold the phones weren't working.
And I was probably 150, 170 yards from our trail. So I drag him 25 yards, and I move my gun, my fanny pack, and my jacket, and drag him another 25 yards. And I was dragging him in my tracks, so it made it even easier.
Yeah.
Once I got him into our road, I put a tag on him, and the guys come out of the woods about 11 o'clock and drove back there on a four-wheeler and
Nice.
threw him on. But he was a dandy. He was a dandy buck. And like I said, it's pretty neat when you call him. That's the one I want. And he happens to walk by.
Yeah.
You know,
It's incredible.
That's putting him in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
He moved back in just a couple weeks before that. He was gone all bow
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, well, he was a mile away. We got pictures of
Yeah,
him
oh,
a
yeah,
mile
right,
away
yeah.
in the summertime. In the summertime, but I would say if he wasn't one of the most dominant bucks in the woods, he'd be in the top three anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
So the buck you shot, Paul. So that was Veterans Day.
Veterans Day, yeah.
So that would have been right after kind of right in the middle of the rut, I guess.
Yeah,
What's that?
I would
the
say
11th, or what was the date of Veterans Day this year? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I
Monday.
think
I was
it
at
was
work.
11. I think
it was the 11th.
Yeah, I was working too.
I think it's an
Yeah.
11.
what's the 11th? I know it was the 11th.
Yeah, it was the 11th. You know, I had the day off, and I got to the cabin in the morning. I was talking to my dad. I said, "Well, where are you gonna go?" You know, we're discussing where we were gonna go, and I said, "Well, we finally got a northeast wind. I think I'm gonna hunt. I think I'm gonna hunt my stand back behind the camp." And then he's like, "Why don't you go hunt that stand we moved?" Because we had moved a stand on one of our properties specifically for a north or northeast wind, and he's like, "You've been hunting this stand behind the camp. Why don't you go hunt over there? Just give you a change of scenery." I was like, "Yeah, good thinking," because it was either one or the other. That's what I was thinking. And okay, so I went over. I got in the woods early. As it got daylight, it was dead calm. It was we had snow. However, it was 45 degrees for a couple of days, so the snow was melting pretty rapidly. There was only a little bit of snow here and there, and it was shortly after daylight. I was sitting in the stands and looking left, looking right, kind of like looking out across the same swamp, that where he had shot the buck, just something on the west side of it. And I heard a twig snap. I turned my head, and there he is. I mean, he's 30 yards, coming right down the edge of the brush, right where I expected them. When we moved the stand there, I expected the deer to be moving right along the edge of that brush, heading out towards our food plot. And I grabbed my bow. I tried to grab the camera, which I hit the button for power on the camera. I swung the out, and just I pressed the button for record, and apparently the record button doesn't work if you don't actually turn the camera on.
Oh,
So-
that's an important piece of that. Yeah.
So yeah, I was in the stand, or he's walking by me now at 30 yards, and I got drawn on him, and when I took my quiver off my bow, because we always take our quivers off in the tree, there's a small peg that I hung my quiver on. Well, my bottom cam on my bow was hitting the fletch of my arrow, so now I had to lean out a little bit further, and when I kind of leaned out on the stand just a little bit, I heard the stand made a sound. Well,
You have a bleeding stand?
yeah, it was
Yeah,
it was
you
more
gotta
of
get one of those.
It was more of a high pitched squeak than a bleat, but he stopped. He was right. He stopped perfect. There was probably a 10-inch tree, blocking, running right up his left, or his front left leg, covering his vital. So I come to full draw, and I said, "All right, I got you now. Just take 2 steps." Well, he took 2 steps, and he put his nose down. I thought he was gonna take a third step, but he didn't. Then he like in half. He was walking, and he just kind of stopped, and he picked his head up, and to check the wind, and it was too late. He was already clear, and I hit him right where I was aiming, and arrow zipped through him, and he took off He took off like a
How,
freight,
how
like a freight
close was
train.
he?
He was probably 28 yards when I shot him,
Yeah.
and just
Broadside
made
or
a great,
quartering or
you know, just broadside, just barely quartering away.
yeah.
I mean, I couldn't have, you know, it's probably one of the better shots I've ever made.
Yeah.
You know, I shoot most of my deer at, 10 or 12 yards, but to shoot one at 28 yards, which is really a chip shot now with today's technology of an archer equipment.
But still,
whatnot.
even with that being a chip shot, I mean, the majority of your opportunities with a bow end up coming
Yeah.
under 20 yards.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can practice the 80 yards all you want, but
Oh
it
yeah.
seems like almost every opportunity I get that's a good one is like, it's almost like too close.
Yeah.
It's like, get out a little ways so I got an angle on you.
Yeah.
But you won lung that, or?
It caught both lungs. It caught the
Did it?
back. It caught the back of his left lung and went right through the center of his right lung.
That's crazy. It didn't bleed.
And well, like like my dad had said, it just didn't bleed. And I was fortunate enough to have the back some background in tracking deer, and not only in finding blood, but understanding the deer and what he's going to do when he's hit.
Yeah.
That definitely helps.
So he took off, and we did a podcast on that because it kind of stemming from a lot of our experience. You don't realize how many deer tracking stories you have until you sit down and start telling them, and you're like, oh my god, we could talk about this for like
Yeah.
6 hours.
It's
but reading the deer's body language when you hit them.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy when you make that shot and you get all pumped up, and then you're looking around. But you should be like, let that arrow go or pull the trigger and watch that deer and see what happens. Because
Oh, yeah.
they're going to tell you everything by the way that they react when you hit them.
This buck, when I hit him, he took off running, and he took off west, turning to north, and running back through the brush that he was walking down the edge of. When I got to my arrow, or when I found my arrow, the arrow passed through him, and on his second bound, the arrow fell out of him, and that's where I found the arrow. And I could see on the veins of my arrow there was blood on the veins, but there was bubbles in it. So I knew I got him in the lungs. Took off with his tail down, running, like I said, like a freight train through the brush. And after I tracked him probably 130 yards. By the time I came to the last blood, and I figured he had to go. Like my dad said, there was a fork in the trail. He either went left or he went right. I figured he went right, just because if I hit him through the lungs, he's mortally hit. He's going to go back down and try and get into the bedding down in that swamp. And sure enough, he wasn't 40 yards. I mean, and when I found him, he was bedded. Like his legs were tucked underneath him. He bedded.
Also, he laid right down.
He laid right down and died, and his nose, like, he was bedded. He was bedded with his head up. He died, and his nose
Interesting.
dipped down into the ground. So,
You don't see that every day, especially with a long shot. But
yeah. So, it was a great buck. It was a great season. The season was incredible. I like seeing I like hearing the stories from all these guys. I like, getting getting the opportunity to, track the deer with these guys, and and then I especially, get a little bit of a bonus, because when these guys all shoot video, or are video on their hunts, I get to do I don't want to say I do the majority of the video editing. I do quite a bit of it, so I get to rewatch these video clips
that's cool.
over and over and over again. So it's really rewarding.
yeah, that's definitely the benefit of doing the video side of it, is that you capture those memories forever. And that's one of the things I'm loving about doing the podcast is we've been doing a bunch of our podcasts have been actually just recorded on our hunts, like when we're either traveling in the truck or we're back at camp bullshitting, and it's so much fun. Like, I love listening back to it because it just takes me back.
Yeah.
Like, and those are my favorite times of the whole hunting season, is just, everybody picking on me. I always end up being the one that's getting picked on, but it's just like,
I'm not surprised.
yeah, I know you're not. I'm pretty easy, aren't I? What is it? Fuck you, Scott.
Oh, you fit right in with our group.
Pretty easy. That's my my tactic is I just let myself get picked on. And people are like, he's all right. I can just pick on him. We need somebody new to pick on.
All been there.
Ryan.
Everybody's got one. Every group has got a guy.
Yep, that's him.
So the guy that gets picked on. So you went down to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So is that your first out-of-state trip to hunt like
Nope.
that, or?
I shot a buck in Ohio, probably like 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, my season was really good actually. I mean, I got married in May, so my season was kind of like all over the place.
Why would that be?
Started up a horse farm, got married.
We don't
Yeah,
have
just it
to.
all
I don't
fell
want to
into-
get you in trouble. That's
No, but I mean, her brother, my brother-in-law Ben, he's just getting into hunting, and he loves it too. And like last 2 years, I just been kind of looking at their farm, setting up stands for him, and he's one that he just takes everything in. And I don't know much. I mean, I learned a lot from these guys. I mean, a lot from these guys. And every time you hunt with them, you learn something new. You sit in a stand, okay, it's here because the woods pinches or a hill comes together or something. And so I just kind of take. Luckily enough, I'm able to soak that in like a sponge. And when I go look at a stand now, I'm like, okay, like I got. A couple years ago, real screwed on a big buck because I hung it in a stupid spot, and Scott yelled at me all morning. The buck came by and never killed him, but he was nice. So I just kind of, ever since now, I hang a stand. I'm like, all right, shoot 360.
what would Scott do?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, but that's just something that it was a
But
good
I'm not-
tree,
yeah,
but it's not. I mean,
not
if
in
you
the right
can't
spot.
shoot, if you can't shoot, I'm a little bit
He's pretty
hard, I
anal
guess.
about his
I'm
stuff.
anal about setting up, and I don't know,
Yeah.
but it's only for the best
Yeah,
interest.
because I would have shot a real nice deer that morning.
Yeah.
But I watched him and he got done winning and blue, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But so like this year, Miami Open, I hunted a little bit with a bow and just not like I usually do, but I set a stand off my brother-in-law and I was actually in the barn working, and he sends me a text, he's like, just shot a doe, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I go out, I'll be out in a half hour, we'll track it. And he was pretty calm, cool, and collected, and I never thought nothing of it. And he's like, I shot him at 5 yards. I shot her at 5 yards. And I'm like, okay. So I holy crap, blood all over the place. The arrow snapped in half. I'm tracking in front of him, and I look up 80 yards, and I shine the light. Well, I see a rack, and I'm like,
You got to go.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm leaving. I'll be back, and if you guys are here, great. If you're not,
All right.
okay.
See you, Scotty.
Yep.
Thanks,
And
buddy.
I look at the rack, and I'm like, man, he said he shot a doe, but there's a rack on this buck. Well, turns out he was playing a joke, and he shot a real nice 14
no
inch wide
kidding.
8-pointer, his first buck ever with a bow. And so, I mean, my season was made. I didn't have to shoot deer, and I missed 2 this year with the bow, and I was just all over the place.
We don't have to talk
Yeah, we
about
don't
that.
talk about that. But so then gun season came, and I mean, I always go to this one stand across the creek, and it's on the bottom of this hill, and just nobody goes back there. It seems like the deer just funnel back there all day long. And the morning I seen, I think, 2 little bucks, a couple of does, and my picture came through a Tim's deer, and I'm like, hang the gun up, took pictures, and run back to the stand. It's a heck of a walk back there, but it got back to the stand like 1 o'clock, and it was like 2 o'clock. I looked back up on the hill, and I could see a deer, and put the binoculars on. I go, good enough for this guy. And I bleed, and he came down the hill, and I shot him, and worst drag of my life. 3 hours later, finally got him out, lost my phone. Headed to Kentucky. the
Wait,
next
was this?
morning.
Oh, this is what you threw your phone,
Threw
didn't
my
you?
phone, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a tantrum.
Yeah, Scott told me that.
Oh,
I laughed my ass
It was
off.
lost him
debacle.
through.
It was, yeah, it was lost by my hand. But it was a good open. I mean, heck of a deer. I mean, not a heck of a deer, but nice deer from New York State, and I was happy. He tasted great. And,
Can't eat the horns, man.
yep. And
Here, you guys keep. I'm gonna go see a man about a horse. You guys keep
yeah.
talking to each
You want a
other.
horse? We can get you.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah,
we can just pause. Well,
pause
if you guys want to keep talking.
I'm talking about opening day with Tim. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you
stop
talk about
him
open
every
day.
year.
Tim, I'll be right back.
I mean, opening days has been one of the days where it's like I always laugh and kid around, but like Tim's gonna shoot a deer, and it all stems back to probably, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. I was sitting on the side of a hill, and right at daybreak, 2 bucks chase a doe by. An hour later, 4 bucks chase the same doe by. An hour after that, a whole herd of bucks came by, chased a doe, and they stopped at 60 yards, and I was like, holy cow! And I was probably 18, so I was shaking, and I shot, and they all still stood there blowing at her, and she's trying to get away from them, and I couldn't. I reloaded the muzzleloader again, shot, scoped myself, bleeding all over the place. Hung the gun up, get down, they all go running across the hill, and like 2 minutes later, I just hear a 20 gauge go, and I was like, well, that was Tim. So I don't know if I called him or he called me, and I was like, did you shoot a nice white horn 8-pointer? And I think he said the words were, yeah, how'd you know? I just missed him twice. So I walked across the hill, and I'm more than happy to help him drag it out, and we got back, took pictures of him and his grandson Harry, and So every opening day we always laugh, but we always just say, when it's not a matter of if Tim's going to shoot it, it's when. And that's how that opening day began.
Well, you know, we spend so much time making sure our stands are right and the wind is right. But I'll tell you a story about Scott years ago when he was a young hunter. It was during the gun season, and he said, "Dad, can you help me hang a stand?" And if you know anything about my son Scott, you know he's extremely headstrong. I says, "Yeah, I'll help you hang the stand, Scott." So we went back in the part of the woods. He says, "I want to hang it on this ridge right here." I said, "Well, you want to hang it in that tree?" Well, he climbs like a monkey. He doesn't even need steps. He can jump up, grab a limb, and shinny up a tree. He gets up there and he says, "I don't like this tree." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'm going to try that tree over there." I said, "Okay." So I sit down. He climbs up that tree. He says, "Nah." He says, I can't see as much as I'd like out of this tree." He says, "Let me try that tree over there." I said, "Yeah, do what you want to do." So I'm still sitting there. He gets up there. He says, "I can't see what I want to see." He says, "I guess I'll go back to that tree you told me to sit in. Put the stand there." He puts the stand there. I'm hunting way down the end of the woods. It's a Saturday morning, about 7:45. I hear boom, 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 3 shots. And I knew it was right where Scott was. I come back to the cabin about 11:30, and there's a big 8-pointer hanging in the tree, and it's tag on it, Scott Murray. So I go in the cabin. I don't say anything. It's our old schoolhouse cabin. I don't say anything. And we're looking around. I look over at him. He says, "I told these guys it's all because of you, Dad."
That's awesome.
Making me get up in that stand. But that's and I'll never forget one time Jamie said to me, and when the kids were young, he said, "Mr. Murray," he says, "out of this whole woods, how come you're putting that stand in that tree right there?" Well, when I was a young guy, I was a trapper. I started trapping when I was 8 years old, and I trapped until I was 29 years old. And if you think about it, if you're a trapper, you got to have that animal step in an 1.5-inch area to catch him. So you get to read the creeks, the swamps, the forest, wherever you're trapping. And that's kind of gave me an advantage of where to set stands up. And I told James, I says, "Now if you're a deer and you're heading down in all those thorns or all those apples, you're coming up over the ridge, how are you going to get there?" I says, "There's a hemlock bog there, and you don't want to walk through that hemlock bog because you're going to be slipping and sinking in that. You're going to walk right through here, skirt the hemlock bog, and hang down there." So we hung a stand there, and saw a dandy buck. I couldn't get a shot at him. That next weekend, I says to James, I says, "You hunt that stand this afternoon." I says, "The buck's going to come over the top of the hill. He's going to walk right down here in front of you." I said, "I'm going to go down and hunt 6 trees." It's another stand that we shot a lot of deer. So I come back right at dark, and James on the ground, and he's swearing and cursing. He's all fired up.
I'm so thankful I get to bring back this memory.
Yeah.
That's what podcasts are for.
Yeah.
You know?
Just can't tell you how happy I am.
He says, "I just missed the biggest buck of my life." But like I said, I've been hunting that woods since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I got a good idea where the deer are going to be and when they're going to be there.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you bring up an interesting point too, because you grew up and you said you did a lot of trapping, and if you watch like popular hunting shows on TV, you should walk straight to your stand and walk back. You should walk straight to your stand and walk back. You have to get out there and walk around and see where the deer trails are, see where the scrapes are, see where the rubs are.
I mean, this year I had a stand that was 80 yards off the mark. I mean, there was no sign by it, and where Paul's buck died, he's like, "There's scrapes and rubs everywhere," and I'm like,
So if you
I'm
don't
gonna
get
walk
down
a
and
little bit,
walk around, and that's why like
things
this
change year to year.
they do, and that's why like this time of year, I think one of you guys already. Well, Tim, you hit on it. That like getting out as soon as the season's done, you're already planning for next year. It's like get out and start walking around because areas where you don't want to really walk during deer season, this is the perfect time. Get out here. The weather's crap. The deer maybe not where they usually are, but you can see all the sign. It's all still fairly
2 weeks
fresh.
ago, I went in a spot that every year I'm gonna hang a stand. I never do because I hunt it, but I mean I shot a nice buck out 2 years ago, but this year I heard a bunch of chasing and grunting in this little bedding area. I found a couple sets of sheds there. I walked in there the other day, and I mean there was rubs, there were scrapes. You could see where all the beds were. I'm like, maybe you just smarten up and move in there 70 yards, and
Right.
it's got a little logging road. You cut in, northwest wind, and never gonna smell you. It's super easy to get into, and
Until you put boots on the ground, you're never
Yeah, I
gonna
mean,
know
there was
that.
so much sign in there. I was sick about it. I mean, huge trees just shredded.
Yeah.
And
You know, we go in first part of September and make sure all our stands our straps are good on them, and our climbing sticks are strapped in good, and then we don't go to our stands, but until the season. And we have some stands that are really great spots, and I learned this years ago. I had a stand that was in the bottom of a hemlock drainage that I was going to shoot a big buck there. I was going to shoot a big buck there. And what happened was a pine tree blew over on a trail out of my sight and changed the dynamics of the whole woods.
Right.
I never
Beaver
saw-
Dam this year, our
Yeah.
cabin was terrible because
I never saw a deer, not only a buck, coming down that main run that was tore up the year before and all summer long. And I said, what the hell happened to me? So I climbed down, I took my stand down, and I walked down my trail, and there's a great big hemlock tree blew over my trail. That's why the deer weren't coming by me.
No kidding.
Yeah.
They weren't traveling that
They
anymore.
weren't traveling that anymore because of that big obstacle.
Mhm.
And that was an important lesson learned. That's why this year, opening day of gun season, and the day before opening day of gun season, I walked my whole property through snow that deep to make sure that I had deer where I wanted to hunt the
Traveling
next
where you
morning.
expect them to be traveling, yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It is interesting because I'd have never thought about that. A tree blew over and changed the whole dynamics
Yep.
of your hunt within.
Well, and you just made me think about something, because one of our best spots up at our camp area where I hunt, there was a huge tree that came down across a logging road, and it's a real steep side hill, and there's a trail that switchbacks up it, and the deer usually would travel that road. But that huge tree came down over the road, so now the deer aren't traveling it because it's difficult for them to.
Yeah. But
So now you say that, and like that's the power of like talking about this stuff, because you don't really, sometimes you don't put it all together, and then you hear somebody else say it, and it's like, well, that's why they're not traveling that, because there's an obstacle in the way that they don't want to go around. So
I mean,
what are they gonna do? They're gonna find the easiest way to get there.
There's something as dumb as like that buck I messed up on that stand. There was a huge maple tree, and any deer comes out of the front of you off the treetops, you're shooting them. Well, this deer, for whatever reason, now looking back, it was through a whole bunch of beach saplings. And that week before, I was sitting there and I had about 10 yards I couldn't shoot. It went out in front of me, went down the drainage ditch, and went up into all the treetops they had logged. And then a week later, I mean, what are the odds? But Scott's like, well, I'll go with you. So he climbed. I shot a doe out of there. And then, so Scott climbs up with me, and I was halfway the stand. He's like, get up here. He goes, there's a buck coming with a doe. Well, it was that same 9-pointer. He did the same thing. Came down, went through the beech trees because he had cover. He didn't want to be out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
Hit that and got out in that drainage ditch. And so now the stand's on the other side. Next year, I shot a buck out of it. But just little
kidding.
things that you don't really think about until you really pay attention to detail.
Right.
You've been talking to Scott for a while now, at the gym or whatever, and I'm going to say he's gone now, so I'm going to talk
we
him
can
up.
say whatever we
Yeah, we
want.
can say whatever we want, but I am going to talk him up because
How much does he bench?
we're
How many
He's
push-ups?
he's strong.
He's all right.
He does.
He's pretty
we
strong.
don't really bench. We do dumbbells. We're more free weight guys.
He looks good.
Yeah.
on
No homo.
a different note, he does have a knack for choosing a tree. We all talk about where are you going to set your stand up, blah 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 blah, and these guys over here, Tim and Paul, will probably say he will probably spend okay, great, we're going to set it here, and you might be looking at 3 or 4 trees, and it might take him a half hour.
You can nap by the time he picks
By the
the
time he
tree.
picks it out, he'll be like, you know what? No, this is where we got to put it. And I've learned in the last 30 years that if Scott says put the stand
Hang the
there,
stand, yeah.
you hang the stand there. It's as simple as that. I don't know. He's got a knack for it, and I mean, I won't say a knack, almost a gift. I mean, he just. And I don't know how many times in these such stories, whatever, talking about another one of our friends, told him, Scott's like, hey, if I were you, I'd move that stand over here, just get it off this trail and blah, blah. And guess what happened? The kid didn't do it, and then had an opportunity of a buck of a lifetime and got picked off. Had he moved the stand, we don't know.
Story might be
So
different, yeah.
could be a different story. So for whatever it is, but
That's one of the hardest things is when my brother-in-law is getting into hunting, and I catch myself like being too like direct, like telling him like, no, don't do that, because like part of it is you have to learn that, and I'm not I'm by no means an expert in it, and I can't say, look at all the bucks I have on the wall, because I don't really have any big trophies. But over time, you learn every time you sit in a stand and you get busted here or you get this there, like you start to figure it out. But sometimes you have to let people also figure that out on their own.
Yep.
Because like Ryan, you said you just made that adjustment on your own. You've seen a deer do that a couple times, and you make that adjustment on your own, and now you have that success, and you feel so good
Well,
about
that's what
that.
I look at. I mean, if that buck didn't do that to me with Scott, I'd probably still have that stand in the same stupid
Mm-hmm.
tree. And I mean, yeah, I was good enough to shoot some does out of it, but a doe's not. I mean, a doe and a buck are completely different. I mean, that buck walked through the middle of beach saplings for one reason. He didn't want to be in the open. Them does walked down that log, or not that logging road, but the little drainage ditch with a trail, like it's nothing.
Right.
Him, he was nowhere. I mean, he was 10 yards away. I mean, probably 130-inch 9-pointer that dead to rights if I was in the other. And now it's like any deer I see, like even this year, sitting in that stand. So this year, all the deer were, I saw a lot of deer out of that stand, but they were 50 yards away. And why? Because there's a tree laying 40 yards away where they'd come down the drainage ditch. But now this year they cross. I mean, I grunted in a pretty nice buck if I didn't grunt it when it came, but same thing. So next year I know, okay, either cut that tree or there's another big double maple, move it.
Get
So
in that tree, yeah.
You have to adjust. You have to
Yeah,
adapt.
I
I mean, but it goes back to what you said about walking around. I mean, you have to get down. You have to walk around. You have to look to see what's different. You know, why am I not seeing deer? What's going on? What changed? Did the food source change? Is it something? Look at that stand down in the corner. When that big hemlock fell down. The deer used to come down, and all of a sudden that big hemlock came down, and they just weren't doing what they normally do. And
or even like neighbors logging. I mean, 2 years ago, 3 years ago was, man, our logs got logged. There were bucks everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Because maybe now they got cover, they got bedding.
oh, there's so much treetops in it. And those are, but I mean, 3 years ago our woods was like insane. But
the hunting was good.
oh, it's
insane.
crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's another good pointer is just, be aware of what's going on around you. Because even though if it's not, maybe it's not, did they log? Maybe it's, did they plant food plots?
Well,
do
I
they
think-
do they have stuff that they're doing like that's drawing the deer in more? So
Yeah.
maybe they're hanging there and they're bedding here.
Well, I think too, people don't give the deer credit like pressure. I mean, the way I look at it is, if you walk into your living room every day and walk into that table, you're gonna walk around it eventually. It's the same thing. I mean, a couple places I hunt, the guys are just like they don't think deer are smart. They don't think they drive right by the bedding. I mean, they park. And sighting their crossbows in where they hunt, like that changes the woods. No, the deer aren't that smart. Well, yeah, they are. That's why they're not there anymore. Then like 2 weeks after gun season, here come all the bucks back. It's like,
Yeah.
well, where'd they go? Or you weren't. I mean,
100%. Yeah.
they're not dumb.
When you, in the course of your deer hunting career, when you first start out, you shoot a nice 2.5-year-old 8-pointer. That's a trophy for you. But if you want to transition into shooting mature bucks, transition to
Still there.
mature bucks, which there aren't that many of them. Okay, you have to adapt to them, and you're not going to see as many mature bucks as you are young bucks and does. But you have to be in a spot where you're going to see them, and there aren't that many of them. So you got to be very, very, very selective. And you got to kind of think like one.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think like one. Where, like Paul said, where's he going to come? He's going to come right on the edge of that bedding in the brush there, above the swamp. So you got to put your stand where you think a big buck is going to feel safe.
Right.
That's what it comes
That's
down
so
to.
true, because you can put your stand where you're going to see a shitload of deer,
Oh, yeah.
but you're not going to see a big
When
buck. And I'm very guilty of that because I love seeing deer.
Yeah.
But
Well, when you transition from I always tell people that they said, "You see any deer?" And I say, "I don't want to see any deer. I want to see one deer.
right.
I know what they look like.
Yeah.
I want to see the one."
Yeah.
I know in the last like 4 years really shed hunting. If you find a shed of a good deer, like there's one big six will haunt me forever, but he was a twin a couple years ago. I shot his twin, and then ever since then I'm like, man, I want to kill his brother. Well, when he was a 3-year-old, never saw him. Had like 2-3 pictures of him. As a 4-year-old, I had like 5 or 6 pictures of him, and I found his sheds in a spot that I never even thought deer would even go on that property. So I was like, well, what are the odds of this? I hung a stand there. Well, I had probably 400 pictures of him that year.
No kidding.
And then it was the day before Thanksgiving. I got done doing barn chores. It was like 10 in the morning. And I was like, you know what? I go, it's beautiful out. I'm going to go hunt that stand for the rest of the day. The wind was perfect. It was northwest wind. I went walking in, and for whatever reason that morning, the trail was all froze up. And I never, ever walked to the inside of that trail, but that day I did. And there was a couple little blowdowns. Came around the blowdown. He was bedded 40 yards from my tree stand, within 30 yards where I found that shed. And he was just laying under a little, apple blowdown. And I totally got, buck for you, whatever you call it.
Got jammed up?
I shot, and yeah, wow. And I mean, I was like, wait till the guys see
Let
this.
me- let me take this. You know, we've all been guilty of having buck fever. Okay, I had it when I was a young guy.
Haven't had it since. You caught it once and then it was.
Well, what I taught myself to do is get mad at the deer. And I use this analogy. You know, you're in high school, and a guy that's bigger and stronger, he was going to pick a fight with you, and you know you're not going to beat him, but you're at least going to have him remember he fought you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to get mad. You got to get angry. Well, that's what I do. I tell young hunters, if you see a nice buck, get mad at him, because all those jitters will go away.
Mhm.
Because you're angry. Your focus is on anger. Not that you're mad at the deer, but change the excitement into anger,
Yeah.
and you can kill that deer.
Yeah. I think there's that. I've heard that before,
It's
and
true.
it's very true.
And now, at this stage of my hunting career, when I see a deer I want to shoot, a calmness comes over me. If you've been to them as long as I have, a calmness comes over me. Where am I going to shoot this deer? Where's the opening? What shot is he going to present? Is he going to cut my wind? Do I need to shoot him before that? And I usually have that all much figured out. So I'm figuring which way the deer's come. But when I shoot a deer now, I'm dead calm. Dead calm. But when I was younger, I had to get mad.
Oh man, I was like a schoolgirl. I was shaking. I didn't even. After like 8 seconds, I'm like, you need to shoot. Like I rushed it big time. He was bedded. I mean, he got up out of his bed and he was just calm as could be. 50 yards, scope, boom.
Well, you got to say,
There
I'm
you
going to
go.
kill you, son.
I'm gonna go on record like I have not reached that age where the calmness
No.
has come yet, because it just
I was
don't
gonna
happen.
ask when that happens.
Yeah,
I wanted to.
I'm gonna be
like,
50
now.
here pretty soon, and
Yeah.
I ain't there yet. I ain't there yet.
No, and I'm the same way. Like the last couple of years, I shot in Pennsylvania. Whatever it is, Pennsylvania gets me, because both the bucks I shot there were not big bucks by any means, not even close to being my best bucks. But I lost my shit. And I'm freaking re-racking rounds, and I don't even have to re-rack. I'm just shooting. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I just and I don't know. I sit down. The deer's laying there. I got him. I'm like, what the hell just happened? I just lost my shit. But to your point, like staying like focused, and then getting, whether it's getting yourself angry or put yourself, whatever your mantra is,
I know,
stop
like-
thinking about the fact that you got a deer in front of you and just execute what you've practiced. And
Usually I just psych myself out, and my wife always, she's like, you rush it. I mean, every big buck I've had a chance. I mean, I've completely like turned into a girl, rushed it over, under, you name it, I've done it.
Yeah.
And then that buck I shot in Kentucky this year, I mean, I had my scope, I had safety up for 2-3 minutes, and I was like, nope, he's gonna walk, and he stopped in the perfect lane, and I remember breathing real deep and just squeezing, and I was just like,
Yep.
it felt good. But then, of course, right into my doubts, you probably missed, and I got down, walked all the way over there, and I was like, and I could see blood spraying. I'm like, holy cow, this just happened. Then that's when my emotions hit me then, and I was like, I walked up, and I was just like, oh, boy.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Tim taught me the lesson about getting angry, and we have to go back to that time where I did miss probably the biggest buck of my life when he told me to sit where he told me to sit. When he said, hey, they're going to come down off this hill, and that's exactly what happened, right at last light or whatever. And I made that one fatal mistake because I felt like, I literally said, wait till the boys see this one.
yeah, you're
And-
already putting them in your truck.
Yeah,
And
well,
that big 6 that I grazed,
that doesn't work
It's a
that
huge
way.
mistake.
Huge
that's
mistake.
where I've gone wrong.
Huge mistake.
Every time I've missed a deer, I've already put my hands on
I
his horns.
literally remember saying to myself, that big 6, I was like, I put the crosshairs right on his neck, and I'm like, don't mess the mount up. And I was like, right then and there, I should have just let it rip.
Don't mess them
I
up.
literally said that to
Yeah.
my head. I'm like, because I like that morning, I literally left the barn. I texted my dad. I'm like, I'm gonna kill that big 6. Do you remember? He sent back, yeah, okay. Because until bow season, I didn't have any pictures of him. And then that day, and I'm like, now looking back, where he was bedded. I mean, where he was bedded, because the guys hunt there, they drive down the gas line, they park, they don't pay attention. I mean, they're gun hunters. I mean, they walk. I mean, it is what it is. But they walk around, they shoot or whatever, and they leave. They're not hunters.
Yeah.
I mean, they like gun hunting. That's how they do it. So. And where I park, I always park up front, walk my way in, and a northwest wind, I can walk down the power line, cut in, and any deer in that swamp will never smell me. Well, where he was sitting, and if I didn't cut that little bend that I did because it was frozen, he would have saw me. But where he was bedded, it was northwest wind, so anything behind him, he's smelling. And where he was bedded, he could watch down the
See
power
everything.
line, he could watch on the logging road, and that little bend I did was just enough where he didn't see me. And I mean,
So it makes perfect sense he was where he was.
yeah, I mean, looking
Yeah.
back now, he was there because he knew that it was pressured, and he knew if he saw him coming, he'd get out of there. And I should have just shot him in the neck.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that we're even talking about this because, going back to the whole, why we do what we do or whatever. I mean, we can probably all tell the stories about all the bucks that we shot or whatever, but I mean, for me, I remember vividly every single one that I've ever missed and messed up on more than that I do remember the ones that I'm successful. So
100%.
I'm the same way. I've messed up on two monsters in my life. Two monsters in my life. I had him at 6 yards, one of them, but he was facing a swamp, and I knew he was going to walk underneath me, and I was going to shoot him 5 yards, quartering away from me, and he stopped right underneath me and made a scrape, right underneath me, and he caught me. He caught me.
Yeah.
And then another one, the grandson of my 14-pointer. I knew he was there because the rubs were incredible. I had a doe come through, walked right under the stand. I had a dandy 6-pointer come through, walked right under the stand. And about an hour later, I hear something behind me. I look over my shoulder, there's a red squirrel right next to the scrape. Thought something walked up behind. I turn around like that, and here's this monster buck staring at me at 15 yards. I don't even got my bow, you know. I looked at that red squirrel. And he's looking at me. He turns around and he walks away. And instead of me grabbing my bow, because he come right back, he wanted to track that
Did he
down.
really?
I didn't have my bow. Because in a million years, I never thought he was going to come back. Well, he came back. I could have shot him twice if I wasn't listening to a gosh darn red squirrel.
Mm-hmm.
2 monster bucks.
Yeah.
2 monster bucks. And
Yeah,
what's the chance of him making a scrape right at the base of my tree? A big 11-pointer. Got hit by a car the next weekend.
No kidding.
I
Yeah.
think for me, a lot of the reason is I just rush because I'm like, for whatever reason, every time I see a deer, it's like, kill him now or he's gone. Well,
Yeah.
that's not the case. I mean, a couple of years ago, I shot a real good one, and that deer, I think you shot that pretty boy buck, right?
Mhm.
And Paul said he saw a big one after he shot his buck. He said there was a big one over trying to gore it or go around him, and an hour later, I seen a beach sapling up in them treetops, just getting worked, and I just was like, oh, okay, that's a buck. And if I knew what deer it was, I would never even turn the camera on, but I hit the camera, and I was just like, turn to the run, and I snort wheezed or I grunted, and then all of a sudden I just seen the sapling just get snapped, and I was like, oh boy. And it was so dead calm and crisp that day. I mean, I just heard you could tell it was a good one. I was like, holy cow. Range of spot, 31 yards, this little beach sapling, drew back, and when I seen his rack come from my peep set, I was like, oh my God. Oh God, it's him. Like, it's the Big Ten. And he came, and I was like, he stopped. I mean, if he wouldn't have done what he did, I mean, I was so dead set on that 31 yards. I mean, I moved my sight to 31 yards. I was locked on him. And then he turned. He was walking, now looking back like an idiot. He was walking to the scrape. It was like 22, 23 yards. Well, he hit that like 25, 26 yard mark. And he put his nose up and he started licking it. And I was like, oh, he's going to win me. Well, the wind wasn't even blowing at him. He was just smelling that scrape. And I friggin' let it rip. And I shoulder, you know.
Yeah.
But just, if you slow it all down.
I think if I see a deer and it's a buck I want to shoot, that's the last time I look at his rack till he's on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Once I make a determination that I want to shoot that deer, I never look at his rack again. I just don't.
Yeah.
Because all I concentrate on is his vitals.
Yeah.
So that's my concentration. Because
be
a
learned
lot
from
of guys see that big rack and they get fired up. You know.
It's hard
Like-
not to, yeah.
Like he-
Right here. Yeah, I'm one of them guys.
like Ryan was saying that he saw the rack through his peep. I'd have never saw that rack
Yeah.
through my peep because I'd have been
Trying to headshot or what?
No,
I'd have been dead. I'd have been dead set on his heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot to be learned from that.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I mean, we're all human.
Oh, yeah.
If you've hunted, you've missed, and I think that's what's important too, because it's very easy when in this world we live in where our lives are on social media and that's how people know us, is it's like, wow, I mean, these guys are perfect. And
Well,
it's
that's-
like, no, we're not.
No.
Like, we're human.
Well,
and
that's what I think too. That social media thing. I mean, people like to me, and social media is good and it's bad. I don't know. I'm 50-50 with it, but to me, I think so many people on social media have that urge that they have to kill a deer for social media. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, to me, if you're doing that, you're not even in it for the right reason. I'd rather sit around with beer and food and talk about hunting. And I mean,
I use this analogy when I went to grammar school and was studying history. Back in the medieval times, they had guilds. Whether you were a stonemason or whatever it was, you were an apprentice for so many years, and then you were journeyman for so many years, and then after so many years, you became a master. And I think that's the evolution of hunting. You're an apprentice. You're learning. You're shooting that 4-pointer that comes by and letting every deer in the woods know you're there because you're hunting on the wrong wind and stuff like that. and then you become a journeyman after about 5-6 years, and maybe for the next 15 years you're a journeyman. But after that, you've got enough time accumulated in the woods that you know where your stand's got to be, you know where your scent's got to be, you know where the deer's going to come. And that's what I consider being a master. And it takes a while to get there. Nobody's a master from the first day they step in the woods. There's just too much to know.
Yeah.
And a lot of us people, guys that we hunt in a group like that, we kind of take it for granted. I used to date a gal when I was 17, and I'd shoot a buck every year. Her father had been hunting for 25 years. He never shot a buck. He was jealous of me. Here I am, a 17-year-old kid. I figured the guy's mad at me because I'm fooling around with his daughter,
Right.
and he's hitting me up for information on how to shoot deer.
He wants to know how to shoot a buck. That's
Yeah,
what he wants to
exactly.
know. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome. You're so right, though. I mean, that's you're apprentice, and then you're a journeyman, and then you're a master, whatever.
Right.
That is so true.
But the
And
thing-
you can be. It doesn't matter how old you are. It's that state. And I think like right now, I don't know whether I'd say I was an apprentice or I was a journeyman, but like I'm in a different point. I'm at a point like I talked earlier about being at a point that my brother was at when he was 21. I'm at that point now at 31 because
I got a late start.
I was focused on different things. I was big into sports. I didn't have the time, so that was what it was. But now that I'm into it, it's like I'm like, I gotta be out there. Like, and when you're whether you're a journeyman, like I want to be putting gear on the ground, filling the freezer, like.
Yeah.
And then I see my dad a lot like you. That it's like he doesn't get too excited about it. When he goes out, he doesn't have to hunt 45 days a year. He goes out and hunts.
Yeah.
You know, his 8 days a year, and he's gonna put meat in the freezer. He's gonna get a buck. You know.
And all being said and done, and all the time and effort we put in, you still have to have a little bit of luck. You still have to have a little bit of luck. And I'll give you an example. Years ago, I'm in my early 30s. So we're spotlighting, driving down the road, and I saw a monster buck. I spent the whole rest of the archery season hunting for that deer. The first part of gun season hunting for that deer. Cherry trees, rubbing cherry trees 12 inches in diameter. 9 o'clock in the morning, Thanksgiving morning, kid comes in there, never hunted a property before. Doesn't have an orange blazer. He's got black zip galoshes on, and he's got a cranberry sport coat on with his grandfather's double barrel 12 gauge. He's walking across an open meadow at 9 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't even know where to land. Turns around because he hears something. Here's this buck coming across the field with a black Labrador chasing it. Picks up the gun, fires one shot, hits it right in the eye, and kills it. And I've been hunting that deer religiously for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay? 27-inch wide 8-pointer. 27 inches
Oh
wide.
my God.
So, talk about luck.
Yeah.
He had a little bit of luck.
Right. And he may never have shot another buck his entire life.
An entire life.
Right.
But a blazer, a cranberry blazer,
He looked good doing it.
black,
He had his galoshes on.
black zip boots,
Yeah.
and he shoots a buck of a lifetime.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and I said,
And that's why you
all
go
that
too.
freaking effort I put in on that friggin' deer,
Yeah.
and I never saw him again until
He probably
He
quit
was-
it.
he was in a ditch by the rope.
Johnny Galosh put him on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, you got to have a little bit of luck, but you certainly got to stack the odds in your favor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like the freaking five of us could sit here and talk for like 7 hours.
17
But
hours, yeah.
I gotta. We should start wrapping this up because I told my wife it'd be gone an hour, and I've been gone for like 2.5. So.
See the married part.
I know. Well, I think the kid's probably awake is the problem.
Well, that
so
could be it.
Yeah.
Bill Dan's tearing the house apart right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but-
So, I guess kind of wrapping it up, you know, I've enjoyed getting to know Scott and look forward to getting to know you guys a little bit more. And I think I'd like to do more of this with you guys, you know, throughout the season and when, you know, we get into turkey and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure ice fishing would be a thing right now, but there's no ice, so
Yeah.
we aren't doing that. But
Can you get away for a weekend?
can I?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Come down to our camp with us some
I
weekend.
will.
We're gonna try to get a weekend the end of January, first part of February to go down and hinge cut a bunch of trees.
Yeah. Yeah, just have Scott let me know when you guys are going.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Spend the time down in camp. We got more than enough room.
Yeah, it'd be great to check the place out and see what you guys got down there. Because I hear enough about it. I got images in my head, but
Yeah.
it'd be cool. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for having me over here and shooting the breeze and getting to know all of you guys a little bit better. And so we'll get together again and keep doing what you're doing and get that stuff out on YouTube because I want to see that. You guys would be putting some videos together.
Watch it.
Yeah.
You guys got stuff up on there?
We have
you did get Scott's done.
We have our YouTube channel is up. If anyone wants to head over to the Hunters Creek Outdoors YouTube channel and hit like and subscribe, that'd be great. But we've got I think we have 30 videos
Okay.
on YouTube right now, and we have a goal of turning out 6 to 8 more videos before May 1st.
Nice.
That's my goal.
Before turkey season starts.
Yeah.
We
So
probably have 30 plus videos to make. But
Oh yeah, we've got when you've got
If one wasn't so busy.
14 when you've got 14 to 18 guys and the majority of them are taking cameras with them, I'm telling you, I've got gigabytes of footage that
Terabytes.
terabytes. Exactly.
It is
That
crazy.
it's just the footage we have is so incredible. If we had more time, but that's the thing.
That's the way it is for everyone.
We all work full-time jobs, have families, and and I guess before we end up, I just want to say we always have to say thanks to our families because our families understand what it means to be an outdoors enthusiast like we are. Whether it's whitetail hunting or preparation for whitetails or turkey hunting or whatever, and they still like us, which is
It's amazing.
amazing. It's amazing because
for all the girls.
Sometimes.
Support system.
we are extremely blessed in that respect that our families are very understanding and I believe they feel the pride, some sort of pride in the work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I told your mom this fall. I says your sons are probably 2 of the best deer hunters in Western New York. She looked at me and winked. She says, "Yeah, their father ain't too bad too."
oh, Mom, I can't wait.
Liz, you better hear that.
Oh, really? True story.
Oh,
That's awesome. All right, so thanks for bringing that up. So check out Hunters Creek Outdoors on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Instagram,
your
YouTube.
name is that on all 3 of those platforms, and keep an eye out. These guys are always doing some cool stuff out there, and and give them a follow. So thanks.
Hey,
Thanks,
you,
buddy.
man.
Appreciate it.
Guys, thank you.
Appreciate it.
At the end of this podcast, wanted to give a shout out to some of the companies that Hunters Creek Outdoors is working with. Affliction Game Calls is one. Antler Ice, many of you are familiar with that. Do deer lures and other animal lures and attractants. Deer Ag for their food plots. Earth Spirits Archery, that is a local archery shop, and I'll give them a shout out too. Mike and Maureen over there are awesome, and I know myself and a few of the other guys that I hunt with also go there. They're located just up outside of Warsaw, so definitely a good family-owned operation there to check out for your archery needs, as well as Elimishield Hunt and Thompson Heating and Cooling to keep your house warm and your wife happy. Thanks for listening.